Do you know that fasting can help you live longer? Listen to the end because we are going to have a good discussion about this. So let's begin. 3 different types of fasting that we're going to discuss. The first is what you call the time-restricted fasting. That means you fast between 12 to 16 hours. So what does it translate to? If you say, if your last dinner is at 6 p.m., then 12 hours with 6 a.m. And if you prolong it, add 4 hours, 7, 8, 9, 10. By 10 o'clock, that's when you eat again the following day. That's the time-restricted eating. Now, that's very practical, and you can do it every day. That means essentially, do not snack after your dinner time at 6 or 10 p.m. I guess 10 p.m. is a little bit too lenient. I would restrict after 6 p.m. after your dinner time. So this is what most people do, called intermittent fasting. You can do it every day. So you fast for 16 hours, you eat for 8 hours. So that means you eat between 6 a.m. until 4 p.m. essentially, or have dinner early. It allows fat cells to release energy. So your metabolism becomes more flexible, not just metabolize glucose. It taps the reserves, the fat especially around the visceral fat. And it starts mild autophagy. What this means is cleansing of the mitochondria, where it will be renewed again. So fasting does that. After about 12 to 24 hours fasting, the insulin drops. The fat cells release fatty acids. And that's the reason why sometimes when you fast, your triglyceride goes up transiently. So then the liver converts fat into ketones, which is, mind you, a good fuel for the mind, which eventually we're going to discuss why fasting helps your mind and your clarity. So they're high efficient fuel, the ketones, and especially for the brain. The second type of fasting is alternate day fasting. You eat normally one day and then you fast or very little, which means less than 500 calories, which amounts to soup and vegetables anyway, the next day. So you alternate this. This creates a stronger insulin cycling compared to the intermittent fasting that you do every day. It metabolically makes you flexible. That means you tap the reserve, which is your goal, to tap the fat reserves. And you will have noticeable fat oxidation, but it's harder physiologically. So take your pick. The third one is prolonged fasting. 24-hour to 72 hours fasting. That means you tap the glycogen source, the energy source storage in your liver. The glycogen is tapped and it's released as energy. So that also helps rejuvenate the liver, like detoxing the liver essentially. It helps you with ketone production, which makes your mind more clear. It gives you the sharp cognition when you're fasting 24 hours or after or within 24 to 72 hours. Autophagy increases significantly. That means your body rejuvenates. Stem cells are activated within your body. That's why it had been shown to help even diabetes mellitus. The pancreatic cells increase in size, as reported by some scientists like Dr. Longo. This is not necessary for most benefits, but it reveals what a human is capable of. You can. The last time I had it with a good friend of mine, a bishop, we did a 500 calorie restricted diet out from the box for 1 week. And on the second day, we were fine. We continued to exercise, do a workout, and have fun at the gym. So the key point is, fasting is not eat. You have to maintain some calories, and especially deficiency. You don't want that. Your thyroid becomes depressed, and metabolically, you'll be inactive. Fasting is controlled, temporary, and is metabolism. So let's talk metabolism, because this is where the fasting shines. Insulin is your buzzword. So when you eat something, especially glucose, the glucose is stored in the liver as glycogen. Then it's released as fat when you're fasting overnight, and then ketones. So your body uses fuel in predictable order. Number 1 first would be glucose from recent meals. Then it's stored in the liver as glycogen. So you have enough glucose even if you fast for 24 to 72 hours. Then the fat and the ketones, the fat-derived brain fuel. After about 20 to 12 to 24 hours of fasting, the insulin drops. Remember, every insulin spike is inflammatory. The fat cells release fatty acids, and the liver converts fat into ketones. That's where it gets exciting, because then the ketones, a very efficient fuel for the body, is now produced, not just the glucose from wherever you got it. Ketones are not backup fuel. They are high efficient fuel, especially for the brain. So you become metabolically flexible, meaning you just do not depend on glucose for metabolism or for a source of food, especially for the brain, but your body switches right away to tap the fat so that you can digest it, especially from the visceral fat. That's where it gets exciting, because even if you don't like it, with the with the fasting, this fat in your barriga or the waistline just melts away. They can burn glucose but struggle to burn fat. These are the inflexible, metabolically inflexible. But when you fast, you become flexible. Fasting trains your body to switch fuels efficiently from glucose and then tap the fat. It reduces insulin resistance, meaning the level of insulin circulating in your body is very efficient, able to open the receptors of the cell so that the glucose will come in. And so your body is efficiently making a lot of energy. It improves mitochondrial function. So mitochondria, remember, is the powerhouse of energy production. You need that cleanse all the time, buffed up. This is why fasting can help with metabolic syndrome like diabetes and eventually hypertension, because if your blood sugar is up, your norepinephrine goes up, then it increases your blood pressure. They are related. It also helps with obesity, of course, practical, and fatigue after meals, the postprandial fatigue that's very common. So does fasting slow your metabolism? That's a big question that people always say, oh, metabolism, fasting slows metabolism. Yes, starvation does, but not fasting. Short-term fasting maintains or slightly increases metabolism. It increases norepinephrine, which increases your metabolic rate, and it preserves lean mass as long as you have enough amount of protein requirement in your body. For example, a 150-pound like me would need about 80 grams of protein. How does that translate to? That's about 10 ounce of steak per day. Well, add different things. You don't have to eat steak every day. Whatever your choice of meat would be, that's the equivalent. And you have other sources, like yogurt, for example, the different meat, the different kind of poultry, and also the fish, and even the protein coming from the legumes, and as long as you avoid the grains, which is a carbohydrate source. So what about the mind and cognition? So we talk briefly about the ketones, which is the efficient fuel for the brain. And yes, when you starve, you get more clarity of your mind. Ketones, your brain loves ketones. So when you're fasting, it also produces fewer reactive oxygen species. Remember, the reactive oxygen species and the oxygen radicals are the one that inflames the system. It makes your brain, the whole system, inflamed and sluggish. It increases mitochondrial efficiency, more production of good proteins that would deviate from distorted proteins that can cause cancer. It stabilizes the neuronal signaling. Very efficient signaling. That's why your brain is so clear in transmitting. This is why people report mental clarity, better cognition, improved focus, reduced brain fog. And guess what? When you're fasting also, you will have more empathy because of another mechanism. It improves neurotransmitter, the happy neurotransmitters like serotonin, GABA, oxytocin. What about BDNF, the brain fertilizer, the brain-derived neurotropic factor? It also is increased in exercise. But when you fast, there's an increased production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. It supports learning and memory. Imagine that. Fasting, you learn more. It promotes neuroplasticity, meaning the brain enlarges in where the good source of the blood flow goes, especially the hippocampus, which is the seat of memory and joy. So you'll become more cognitively intact and you're more joyful. It protects against neurodegeneration, so your brain is preserved. Low BDNF is linked to depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, and cognitive decline. Fasting, exercise, and ketosis all arise BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which you can harness when you're fasting. What about the mood and neurotransmitters? During fasting, dopamine signaling becomes more sensitive. So the dopamine spikes you're talking about, better fast so that you have easy dopamine spikes. You don't need the likes of your social media. The serotonin pathways adapt so that the serotonin pathway, the neurotransmitter, which is for good, is expressed right away. The GABA glutamate balance improves. GABA calms the brain. This is also produced when you take pyridoxal or vitamin B6, which converts glutamate to GABA. This is all about nature. The translation, you may feel more calmer, you're more alert, and more emotionally stable. This is likely why fasting has been part of the religious practices. In Catholic faith, we always encourage people to fast so that you will be more close to the suffering of Jesus. Not only that, but also naturally, it will transmit into a better feeling, a better empathy, more charitable feeling. You better more connected with Jesus and his passion. Meditation of his unconditional love goes well with the fasting. It is the best treatment of many metabolic disease and also mood disorders. Meditation traditions, these are always combined with fasting. It's difficult to meditate when you're full of sugar in your body. First, fast on sugar. You don't need to fast on calories. Fast the timing of your food. It's like intermittent fasting and 12-hour or 24-hour fasting. Be tough on your body. It's a self-discipline in your mind as well, psychologically. It's usually also used in the rite of passages because you are going into a hump, a new beginning, and fasting does that. What about fasting and microbiome? Fasting also changes the configuration of the population of the microbiome. Good types of microbiome, which is butyrate forming, flourishes when you fast. When you eat a lot of sugar, it changes the configuration of the diversity. Sugar promotes increase in those microbiome that produces less butyrate, which is less productive to the mucin, which predisposes you to the development of leaky gut and dysbiosis. Remember, there has to be a balance of more good bacteria than the bad bacteria. It prevents you from cancer because if you have more enteric organism, like in small intestinal bowel overgrowth, that bacteria, especially the E. coli belonging to the Enterobacteriaceae, will produce colectin, which mutates the DNA of the colon tissue, promoting early onset colon cancer. That's just one example right there. Metabolism, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, anxiety, daily worries, these are all affected by microbiome. When you fast, it triggers a strong response and it actually helps promote good mood on you. So try first step, fast. Start with intermittent fasting. So there's a microbial reset. When you stop eating, certain bacteria declines, the bad bacteria that does not produce butyrate. Others that feed on mucus and fiber residues increase, such as the lactobacillus and the bifidobacterium microorganism that we do cultivate in terms of making it a high count bacterial count. The microbial diversity can improve as well to make it a more balanced, away from being dysbiotic, meaning imbalance of good and bad bacteria. Fasting creates rhythms in the microbiome, just like sleep cycles. That's why when you fast and when you meditate, you sleep better because neurotransmitters that calms the brain increases. What about the gut barrier and inflammation? Fasting can reduce gut permeability. So it really heals the leaky gut. It lowers inflammatory signals like the interleukin 1, 6, improves immune intolerance. It improves immune tolerance. This matters because chronic inflammation often starts in the gut. Everything starts in the gut. Fasting killing your microbiome is a reality. The important thing is do not eat a lot of sugar. So, makes sense. Fast first on sugar before you even fast from calories or certain types of food. Your microbiome is resilient. What matters most is what you eat with fiber after you fast or during those intermittent fasting. What about longevity? You might be interested in autophagy and disease risk. And by the way, if you like so far this kind of content, please subscribe and share this video because it will help us dissipate this information. So let's talk about longevity. Autophagy, which is cellular recycling, is increased when you fast. It increases the stem cells in your own body. So autophagy literally means self-eating the bad DNA, the bad proteins. It breaks down your cells has a break down damaged proteins and recycle faulty mitochondria. That's the result of fasting. It removes dysfunctional components of the mitochondria or the unfolded proteins. So fasting is the strongest natural activators of autophagy. This is linked to reduced cancer risk, neuroprotection, slower aging in animal models. So remember, there's mechanisms of insulin, mTOR, and aging. Fasting reduces insulin signaling. Every time you produce insulin from sugar, it ages you. mTOR activation is increased, it makes you age. So fasting decreases insulin and mTOR activation. Both pathways are linked to accelerated aging when chronically elevated. Think of fasting as maintenance mode of your cells. Fast regularly. The church encourages to fast on Fridays and Wednesday. Wednesday for the betrayal of Judas, and Fridays, of course, for the death of Jesus. So who should fast and not fast? So by practical means, of course, the pregnant women or breastfeeding, having a history of eating disorder. You don't want to provoke them. Or type 1 diabetes mellitus because they have a very disordered metabolism. People who are underweight for the same eating disorders, taking medications requiring food. So these are practical things. But the rest of us population, fasting is our friend. And of course, meditation. Meditation of his unconditional love through his passion. I'm talking about Jesus. Because unconditional love meditation through his passion allows us to rejuvenate as well, mind, body, especially the soul. Starvation is not the key. Fasting, which is the discipline of not eating something, especially sugar. San Jose Maria Escrivá said it well. If you fast, if you deprive yourself of sugar every time you put a coffee and offer it to a soul in purgatory, how many souls would be watching you at the entrance of the gates of heaven, thanking you for the sugar that you deprive yourself from fasting sugar? So it's exciting. We discuss about the benefits of metabolism, also the effect on cognition from the brain, on the brain, effects also on longevity. These are good effects of fasting. So if you like this video, please make a comment. Let's discuss. I would love to answer your questions. I will respond right away. In the next video, we will be talking about the movement and physical discipline as a corporal mortification, as part of our wholesome approach to health. So this is Dr. Raul Enad from Cadenza Medical Clinic, Ave Maria, Florida, talking about the different topics on medicine and faith relevant to our health and also to the faith. Thank you very much. Goodbye now.